The desert stretched endlessly under the bright twin suns. Sand dunes rolled like waves of a golden ocean, and the wind whispered secrets that had been buried for ages. For years, researchers had searched beneath this desert, following fragments of old star maps and ancient carvings that spoke of something hidden. Most thought it was only a myth. But today the myth was about to become real. Dr. Cora Ilan, a tall and calm scientist from the Veyari species, brushed the dust from her hands and looked at the massive stone door uncovered by the excavation team. Her scaled skin gleamed faintly under the light as she whispered, "We found it, the Vault of Arakai." Her voice trembled even though she tried to sound steady. The human crew members looked at one another. They were used to hearing alien legends, but this one seemed different. The Veyari were not a race known for telling stories without proof. If Dr. Cora believed they had found something, then it had to be important. Among them was Elias Ward, a human engineer. He was not a soldier or a leader, just a man with a knack for fixing things. Machines, broken drones, damaged ships, he could take them apart and put them back together with ease. He never thought his skills would lead him here, standing before a door that had been closed for thousands of years. The research team worked together to open the massive structure. Alien machines hummed as they scanned the symbols carved into the surface. The markings glowed faintly, reacting to the presence of life. Elias noticed that the patterns looked almost like circuits, flowing lines that reminded him of wires on a circuit board. With a loud, grinding sound, the door began to move. Dust filled the air and everyone covered their faces as the heavy stone slid aside. Behind it was a long corridor leading down into the ground. Dim blue lights flickered to life along the walls as if waiting for visitors all this time. The team stepped inside carefully. The corridor led to a chamber so vast that it seemed to swallow sound. In the middle of the chamber stood a giant figure, an armored suit taller than any human, its surface sleek and smooth, covered with ancient alien symbols. The armor stood upright, its arms resting at its sides, its helmet shaped like the head of a guardian. It was lifeless. No lights glowed, no systems moved. It was like a statue, silent and cold. The aliens gasped softly, whispering in their own languages. Dr. Cora stepped forward, eyes wide. "The armor of the Arakai. I never thought I would see it." A Urok scholar with his insect-like body clicking nervously shook his head. "Impossible. The legend said the armor would awaken only for its chosen bearer. No species has ever succeeded." The group examined the armor with their scanners. Energy readings were faint, almost non-existent. The material was unlike anything known, harder than steel, resistant to heat yet lighter than air when touched. The armor was clearly advanced beyond anything in the current galaxy. "Can we activate it?" one of the human researchers asked. Dr. Cora frowned. "We have tried for centuries. Every race has tried. None succeeded." Elias stood at the edge of the chamber staring at the armor. Something about it made his skin tingle. It was not fear, but a strange sense of familiarity, like the armor was watching him even though it was lifeless. He shook his head, telling himself it was only his imagination. Hours passed as the team set up equipment. They tried to power the armor with external energy. They tried to read the alien language etched into its surface. Nothing worked. The armor remained silent, unmoving. Finally, the team grew frustrated. Some believed the legends were wrong. Others thought the armor was broken beyond repair. But Elias could not stop looking at it. The way the lines curved across its chest, the way its helmet was shaped, it almost looked like it was waiting. When the others left to rest, Elias stayed behind. The chamber was quiet except for the hum of machines. He walked slowly toward the armor, his boots echoing on the stone floor. Up close, it was even more impressive. The chest plate was wide, built for someone larger than a human. The arms ended in gauntlets with claws sharp enough to cut through metal. The helmet's eyes were empty, dark hollows that seemed to stare straight at him. Elias raised a hand without thinking. His fingers brushed against the cold metal of the chest plate. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the armor shuddered. Light exploded across its surface, racing through the lines like rivers of fire. The chamber shook as hidden machines roared to life. Symbols glowed bright blue, and the helmet's empty eyes lit up. Elias stumbled back, shocked, but the armor moved. Its chest opened slightly, and a voice, not spoken but felt inside his mind, echoed, "At last." The entire chamber was alive with energy now. The other researchers rushed back in, shouting in surprise. Dr. Cora's eyes were wide with disbelief. "It's responding. How is this possible?" The Urok scholar clicked his mandibles furiously. No, no, it cannot be. Why him? Why a human? The armor stepped forward, its massive frame moving smoothly, almost like it was alive. Elias could feel something pulling him closer. He tried to step back, but the armor reached out and in an instant it closed around him. There was no time to react. The armor sealed itself, wrapping him in layers of light and metal. He could feel it connecting to his mind, his heartbeat, his very breath. Pain shot through him for a moment, then faded. Suddenly he was standing taller, stronger. The chamber seemed smaller. He looked down and saw not his own hands, but armored gauntlets glowing with power. Gasps filled the chamber. The humans and aliens stared in awe, some with fear, others with wonder. Elias's voice echoed strangely inside the helmet. I can feel it. It's alive. Dr. Cora stepped closer, trembling. The armor chose you. Do you understand what this means? Elias shook his head, but deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. The armor had been lifeless for thousands of years, waiting for someone it could accept. And for reasons he could not yet understand, it had chosen a human. The chamber lights dimmed, and then a vision filled Elias's mind. He saw flashes of war, giant ships clashing in space, armies of strange creatures fighting against an enemy so dark and terrible that even the memory of it made his chest tighten. He saw the Arakai, tall warriors in armor like his, standing as the last defense of the galaxy. And he saw them fall one by one, until only silence remained. When the vision ended, Elias fell to his knees, the armor holding him upright. He was breathing heavily, his heart pounding. Dr. Cora knelt beside him. What did you see? She whispered. Elias looked at her, his voice low and filled with awe. I saw the end of a war, and I think, it's not finished yet. The chamber grew quiet again. The researchers looked at each other with unease. The legends had always spoken of a warrior who would return when the galaxy faced its darkest hour. And now, the armor had awakened. The chamber remained silent after the vision faded, except for the faint hum of the alien armor. Elias stood at the center, still wearing the towering suit. Blue light pulsed along its surface, rising and falling in rhythm with his heartbeat. Every breath he took was echoed by a soft hiss inside the helmet. The researchers, both human and alien, stared in awe. No one dared to speak at first. The air was heavy with disbelief. Finally, Dr. Cora stepped forward, her scaled hands trembling. This cannot be a mistake. The armor has chosen. It accepted him. The Urok scholar, his insect-like body clicking nervously, hissed in protest. Impossible. The Arakai were not human. How can this fragile species be worthy? Elias turned his head, the glowing eyes of the helmet fixing on the scholar. His voice came out strange, like two tones at once. His own voice mixed with the echo of something ancient. I didn't choose this. The armor chose me. His words carried weight, and though the Urok wanted to argue, he fell silent. The other humans in the chamber finally found their voices. Some cheered quietly, others whispered in shock. One scientist whispered, "This changes everything. If humans can bond with ancient technology like this, what does it mean for the galaxy?" Elias felt a wave of dizziness. The armor was heavy, yet it moved as though it were part of him. He raised his arm and the gauntlet followed smoothly, glowing faintly. When he thought about stepping forward, the armor obeyed instantly. It was not like wearing a machine. It was like extending his own body. But along with this connection came a flood of strange sensations. He could sense the heartbeat of those nearby, faint vibrations in the floor, and distant echoes deep within the vault. It was overwhelming, and he clenched his fists, trying to steady himself. Dr. Cora placed a hand on the armor's arm. You must remove it for now. Your body may not be ready. The armor responded before Elias could. With a hiss, it unfolded and released him, metal shifting away like liquid. In seconds, Elias stood in his own clothes again, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. The armor remained upright, glowing faintly but no longer bound to him. Everyone stared at him now, not the armor. He felt their eyes full of questions and fear. I didn't mean to, Elias began. I only touched it. That is all it needed, Dr. Cora said quietly. The legend said the armor would awaken only for its destined bearer. We never believed that bearer could be human. Before more could be said, the ground shook. The chamber lights flickered. A deep rumble came from outside the vault. One of the human researchers ran in, panic in his eyes. Ships in orbit. They're not ours. They've already sent landing craft. The Urok scholar's wings clicked nervously. It is too late. Word of this place must have spread. They come for the armor. Dr. Cora looked at Elias. We must move it before they arrive. If the armor falls into the wrong hands... She did not finish her sentence, but the fear in her eyes said enough. The team worked quickly. Machines hummed, equipment was packed, and messages were sent to call for evacuation ships. But the vault was vast, and the suit was too heavy to move without Elias. Dr. Cora turned to him. It listens to you. Can you command it? Elias swallowed hard. He looked at the armor, standing silent once again. Something inside him told him it was not a tool to be commanded. It was waiting, watching, ready. Slowly, he reached out his hand again. The armor lit up instantly, moving toward him like a shadow that wanted to join him. It sealed around his body, and once more he stood taller, stronger. The dizziness returned, but he forced himself to stay steady. The moment the armor bonded with him, new streams of information filled his mind. He could see faint outlines of ships in orbit, their signals pulsing like distant lights. He could feel the vibrations of engines approaching through the desert above. They're coming, Elias said. His voice was calm, but the echo within it made everyone shiver. The Urok scholar shook his head. You are not ready. You cannot control its full power. Then I'll have to learn, Elias replied. The team moved toward the surface, guided by glowing lights that the armor seemed to know how to activate. Ancient corridors opened, walls shifting as though the place itself recognized Elias. When they emerged into the desert night, the sky was filled with streaks of fire, landing craft cutting through the atmosphere. Sandstorms rose where they touched down. The hostile ships belonged to the Kethar Dominion, a faction feared across the galaxy. They were brutal conquerors, always searching for forgotten weapons to strengthen their rule. Their soldiers marched out of the crafts, tall and armored, weapons glowing in their hands. One of them pointed at Elias. There! The human has it. Take him alive! The Kethar soldiers advanced quickly. The researchers scrambled for cover. Elias stood frozen for a moment. The armor pulsed. Ready. Move! Dr. Cora shouted. Elias raised his arm instinctively. A shield of blue energy erupted, blocking a volley of plasma fire. The impact shook him, but the armor absorbed most of it. His vision sharpened, targeting markers appearing in his helmet display. He swung his other arm, and beams of light shot from the gauntlet, scattering the enemy ranks. Sand exploded as soldiers were thrown off their feet. The power was incredible, yet Elias felt clumsy. The armor wanted to move faster than he could. His human reflexes struggled to keep up. He stumbled, nearly falling as he tried to fire again. But where raw skill failed, instinct guided him. Instead of fighting like a trained soldier, Elias used the environment. He kicked up sand, forcing enemies to shield their eyes. He used the shield to push them back rather than stand still. He moved unpredictably, confusing the Kethar who were used to fighting disciplined armies. Dr. Cora and the others watched in disbelief. He was no warrior, yet he was adapting. One Kethar commander roared, charging with a heavy weapon. Elias raised his gauntlet to block, but instead of meeting the strike directly, he sidestepped. The armor enhanced his movement, carrying him faster than he expected. The commander stumbled forward, and Elias brought down his fist, the armor's strength cracking the weapon in half. The remaining Kethar hesitated. They had expected an ancient weapon to fall into their hands, not rise against them. Elias stood tall, the armor glowing brighter than before. He could feel its approval, as though it understood his way of fighting. Not perfect, not trained, but clever, adaptive, human. The Kethar retreated to their ships, leaving the desert littered with scorched sand and broken weapons. The researchers rushed to Elias, their faces pale but filled with awe. Dr. Cora touched his armored arm. You saved us. The armor responds to you because you think differently. It was never about strength, it was about will. Elias deactivated the armor again, falling to his knees as it withdrew. His body shook from exhaustion. The fight had lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours. He looked up at the stars where the enemy ships retreated. They won't stop. They'll come back with more. Dr. Cora nodded grimly. Yes, and others will come too. The awakening of the armor will echo across the galaxy. Elias felt the weight of her words. He had only touched the relic out of curiosity. Now he was bound to something far larger than himself. The armor carried memories of a war that had ended long ago. But if the Kethar feared it so much, perhaps that war was not truly over. He clenched his fists, looking back at the armor as it stood silently behind him. I don't know why it chose me, but if it's waiting for someone to finish what it started, then maybe that someone has to be human. The desert wind howled softly around them, carrying away the dust of battle. Above, the stars shimmered as though watching. The armor of the Arakai had awakened, and with it so had a new chapter of destiny. The desert was quiet again, but only on the surface. Beneath that silence, tension hung like a storm waiting to break. The battle with the Kethar Dominion had shaken the research team, yet it had also left them with an undeniable truth. The armor was awake, and Elias was its chosen bearer. Back inside the vault, the researchers worked in a frenzy. Equipment beeped and scanners hummed, trying to record everything about the relic. Every alien scholar wanted to understand how it bonded with Elias, but none dared to touch it again. Elias sat apart from them, his back against the cool stone wall. The armor stood nearby, silent and tall, but he could still feel it even without wearing it. It was like a faint heartbeat in his mind, reminding him it was never far. Dr. Cora approached him, her scaled face thoughtful. "You did well," she said softly. Elias rubbed his temples. "I almost collapsed out there. If the armor didn't protect me, I'd be dead." She shook her head. "No, you fought like no other. You adapted where others would have failed. That is why it listens to you." Before Elias could answer, alarms blared across the chamber. One of the human researchers shouted, "We're picking up transmissions from orbit, multiple fleets inbound." The Urok scholar hissed in panic. "It begins. The signal of the armor has spread. Every power in this sector will come for it." Elias stood, his chest tight. "How many?" The human researcher swallowed. "Too many to count. At least 3 different factions. They're converging on this world." Dr. Cora's expression darkened. Then the legend was right. The awakening of the armor was never meant to remain secret. It is a beacon, calling across the stars. Visions in the armor that night, while the others argued over escape routes and strategies, Elias rested near the armor. Sleep came, but not peacefully. As soon as his eyes closed, visions rushed into his mind again. He saw a galaxy burning. Fleets of alien ships fought against monstrous shapes that moved like shadows given form. The warriors of the Arakai, wearing armor like his, stood as the last defense. One warrior turned to him through the vision. Though faceless beneath the helmet, Elias felt its gaze. A voice echoed, "The cycle returns. The enemy stirs again. You must be ready." Elias woke with a gasp, sweat on his face. The armor pulsed faintly as though it shared his dream. He realized these were not just visions of the past. They were warnings. The First Council. The next day, representatives from nearby colonies arrived. Humans, Vayari, Urok, and others. They gathered in a temporary council outside the vault. Tents fluttered in the desert wind as leaders argued. Some wanted the armor locked away again, fearing it would bring endless war. Others believed it was the key to defending themselves against enemies like the Kethar. One Urok general hissed sharply, "We cannot trust humans with such power. They are too young as a species, too reckless." A human commander slammed his hand on the table. "You saw what happened yesterday. The armor chose Elias, not you, not me, not anyone else. That means something." Dr. Cora raised her voice to calm them. "The armor is not a prize to claim. It is a warning. The visions it gives speak of an enemy far greater than the Dominion. If the galaxy is to survive, we must understand what is coming." Elias stood silently until all eyes turned to him. He did not want to be the center of this debate, but he knew he had no choice. "I don't know why it picked me," he said slowly. "But I do know this. If we fight each other over it, the real enemy will win before we even see them." His words silenced the group. For a moment, even the wind outside seemed to pause. The enemy's plot far away aboard a massive warship. The Kethar Dominion prepared their response. The commander who had fled the desert knelt before his leader, a tall figure with crimson armor. "The armor has awakened," the commander reported. "And worse, it bonded to a human." The leader's eyes glowed with cold fury. "Then the old stories are true. The humans are the heirs the Arakai spoke of. We cannot allow this. Gather the fleets. The armor must be taken or destroyed with its bearer." Across the galaxy, similar whispers spread. Smugglers, warlords, and rival empires all hungered for the power Elias now carried. What had been a forgotten myth was suddenly the most dangerous secret in the stars. Training with the relic back at the vault, Elias began training with the armor. Each time he bonded with it, he lasted longer before exhaustion struck. The armor seemed to teach him, unlocking new systems as if testing his readiness. One day he discovered flight. The armor's back unfolded, releasing wings of energy that lifted him above the desert. The experience was terrifying at first, the ground falling away beneath him, but soon exhilaration replaced fear. Dr. Cora watched from below, her eyes wide. The Arakai designed it for war across worlds. With wings you can strike from the skies. Elias landed roughly, sand spraying everywhere. He laughed breathlessly. I need more practice. He also learned to summon weapons from within the suit, energy blades that shimmered like lightning, shields that bent light around him, and cannons that could blast through stone. But each use drained him, forcing him to rest for hours after. The armor was powerful, but it demanded balance. Too much reliance, and it would overwhelm his human body. Warning from the stars one evening, while Elias sat watching the twin suns set, a transmission arrived. It was from a neutral trader who had intercepted Dominion chatter. The Kethar are gathering a fleet, the message said. They plan to invade the colony and take the armor by force. They will not come quietly this time. Fear spread among the council. Some suggested fleeing, others argued for surrender. Elias listened quietly before standing once more. If they're coming for me, he said firmly, then I'll face them. But I won't do it alone. If this armor is a symbol, then let it be a symbol that we fight together, not as humans or Vayari or Urok, but as one galaxy. Dr. Cora placed a hand on his shoulder. Spoken like the warrior the armor saw in you. Cliffhanger ending that night, Elias put on the armor again, staring out at the stars. The desert winds howled around him, but inside the suit all was calm. The visions returned, clearer than before. He saw a dark fleet stirring in the void, shapes that were not Kethar, not any known race. They moved like shadows, consuming light wherever they passed. The ancient voice whispered again, "The Dominion is only the beginning. The true enemy wakes. You must unite them or all will fall." Elias opened his eyes, the stars blazing above. For the first time he understood the weight of what was coming. The armor was not just a weapon. It was a key, a beacon, and perhaps the only hope for what lay ahead. And as the sound of distant thunder echoed in the desert, Elias knew it was not thunder at all. The Kethar fleet had arrived. The desert skies burned with fire as the Kethar fleet descended. Dozens of ships pierced the atmosphere, leaving trails of smoke and flame. Their engines shook the ground and their shadows stretched long across the dunes. The Allied researchers, soldiers, and civilians gathered at the colony's edge, fear in their eyes. The defensive cannons they had were weak compared to the enemy fleet. Everyone knew it. At the center stood Elias, armored once more. The glowing blue lines pulsed across the suit, brighter than ever before. The armor felt heavier today, yet also more alive, as if it knew a great battle was coming. Dr. Cora approached him, her scaled face lit by the reflection of fire in the sky. "This is not a battle we can win with strength," she warned. Elias nodded. "Then we won't fight with strength. We'll fight with something the Kethar don't understand. The invasion begins." The first wave of Kethar dropships roared down and slammed into the sand, kicking up storms of dust. Tall soldiers poured out, their armor sharp and jagged, weapons glowing red. Their discipline was terrifying. They marched in perfect lines, moving like a single living machine. The defenders opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through the air, striking enemy shields. Explosions shook the ground. The battle began in chaos. Elias leapt into the fight, wings of energy unfolding from his back. The armor carried him high into the sky, then down like a meteor. His landing shook the sand, scattering enemies in every direction. He raised his arm and a beam of blue light cut through the Kethar line. But the Dominion soldiers did not break. They adjusted instantly, surrounding him with heavy weapons. The armor urged him to charge head-on, but Elias knew he would not last long against sheer numbers. Instead, he tricked them. He kicked up walls of sand with his energy blasts, blinding their vision. He darted sideways, moving unpredictably, hitting weak points rather than fighting straight through. From above, it looked messy, unlike the clean strikes of trained alien warriors. But to the Kethar, it was chaos they could not control. Improvisation. At one point, Elias found himself cornered near a dune. 3 Kethar commanders advanced, their heavy blades glowing red. The armor fed him options: block, strike, counter. But Elias ignored them. Instead, he fired into the sand beneath their feet. The ground exploded upward, burying the commanders in a collapsing dune. The armor seemed surprised, pausing before humming approvingly. "Yeah," Elias muttered inside the helmet. "That's called improvisation." Every move he made broke the patterns of the battlefield. Instead of standing tall, he ducked low. Instead of guarding, he baited. Instead of overwhelming power, he used misdirection. The Cathar fought with strength and order. Elias fought with creativity. And it worked. The vision grows stronger. But in the middle of the fight, the vision struck again. The desert vanished from Elias' sight. He saw the ancient war. The Arakai armor-clad warriors fighting not just the Dominion, but a shadow darker than any enemy. The creatures were shapeless, feeding on light, devouring worlds. One warrior in the vision turned to him and said, "This armor was not made for us. We were only its keepers. It was meant for the ones who would come later." Elias staggered, almost losing his balance in the real world. The armor steadied him, sharing its strength. His breath came hard as the truth struck him. The Arakai had built the armor for humanity, not for themselves. The humans were the ones it had always waited for. Struggle of the colony back on the ground, the defenders struggled. For every Cathar soldier Elias struck down, more arrived. Their ships blotted out the sky, pouring endless troops into the desert. Dr. Cora and the other researchers fought with handheld blasters, covering the retreat of civilians. Explosions shook the colony's buildings. The ground burned with fire and plasma. The Allied commanders shouted orders, but their lines were breaking. The Urok scholar who once doubted Elias cried out, "If the human cannot turn this battle, then all is lost." Elias heard it. Inside the helmet, his jaw tightened. "Not lost," he said to himself. "Not yet." Turning the battle, Elias soared into the sky, dodging heavy fire. His mind raced. Fighting the Cathar head-on was hopeless. But maybe he didn't need to. He spotted one of their command ships hovering above the dunes. Its engines glowed red, powering the flow of troops below. If he could take it out, the Cathar formation would collapse. The armor projected a safe plan: charge the ship directly. But Elias shook his head. Too obvious. They'll see it coming. Instead, he deactivated his wings mid-flight. Gravity pulled him down like a falling star. The Cathar aimed at him, expecting him to crash. But at the last second, he reactivated the wings, skimming low under their fire, weaving through the chaos. He landed on the ship's hull with a heavy thud. Soldiers inside shouted in alarm. Elias slammed his armored fist into the metal, tearing through the surface. Sparks flew. He ripped open the engine core, planted his gauntlet inside, and unleashed a surge of energy. The ship roared, shook, and then exploded in a chain of fire across the sky. The Dominion forces below stumbled, their lines breaking without their command ship. The human advantage. The defenders cheered, but Elias was not finished. He used every trick he could think of. He lured enemy walkers into canyons, where they collapsed under their own weight. He drew fire toward reflective cliffs, bouncing it back. He turned broken machines into traps, wiring them with the armor's energy. The aliens fighting beside him began to see the difference. Where they relied on tradition and order, Elias created disorder, bending the battle to his will. Dr. Cora shouted across the comms, her voice filled with awe. "This is the human edge. It is not strength. It is not size. It is the ability to think beyond the rules." Even the Urok scholar, once full of doubt, admitted quietly, "Perhaps this is why the armor chose him." The final push, but the Dominion commander was not finished. A massive war machine emerged from the sands, a towering mech armed with cannons and blades, taller even than the ancient armor Elias wore. The defenders gasped. Their weapons were useless against it. The mech advanced, shaking the ground with each step. Elias faced it, his own armor glowing brighter in response. "All right," he muttered. "Let's see who's tougher." The mech swung its blade, a weapon the size of a ship's wing. Elias dodged barely in time, sand exploding where the strike landed. He leapt onto its arm, climbing fast, energy blades flashing. Sparks rained as he cut through cables and joints, but the mech struck back, hurling him to the ground. Pain shot through his body. The armor absorbed most of the impact, but he felt the strain deep in his bones. The mech raised its weapon to finish him. At the last second, Elias used the one thing the mech did not expect: its own weight. He blasted the sand beneath it, softening the ground. The giant machine sank, losing balance. Elias surged upward with his wings, driving his blade deep into its core. The mech let out a roar of engines before collapsing in a storm of fire. Revelation: as the dust cleared, the Dominion soldiers hesitated. Their leader was defeated, their machines destroyed. Slowly they began to retreat, ships lifting into the skies. The defenders shouted in victory, but Elias did not celebrate. Inside the armor, his vision returned one last time. The ancient warriors of the Arakai stood before him, fading shadows of the past. "You understand now," they said. "We built this for those who could adapt, who could turn weakness into strength. You are not the end of our story. You are the beginning of your own." The vision faded, leaving Elias breathless. He knew the Dominion would return. He knew worse enemies still waited in the dark. But for the first time, he believed humanity truly had a place in this ancient destiny. He stood tall as the armor glowed brighter than ever, its pulse in perfect rhythm with his own heart. The battle in the desert had ended, but the war was far from over. The Kethar Dominion had been pushed back, their great war machine destroyed. Yet their retreat was only temporary. Everyone knew they would return, with greater numbers and greater fury. For days, the defenders rebuilt what they could of the colony. Burned walls were patched with scrap metal, fallen turrets were repaired, and wounded allies rested under the care of healers. Yet hope now glimmered where fear once lived. At the center of that hope was Elias. He had worn the armor into battle and returned alive. To the humans, he was proof that their kind could stand against powers far older and stronger. To the other alien races, he was a mystery, fragile yet unstoppable, reckless yet victorious. But to himself, Elias was still uncertain. Burden of the chosen one night. As stars spread across the desert sky, Elias sat apart from the others. The armor stood nearby, silent but glowing faintly, like a lantern in the dark. Dr. Cora joined him, her scaled features soft in the moonlight. "You are troubled," she said gently. Elias nodded. "They all look at me like I'm some kind of hero. But I'm just me, a mechanic who happened to touch the wrong thing." "The armor disagrees," she replied. "It sees what you cannot yet see in yourself." Elias sighed, gazing at the horizon. "If it was meant for humans, then why? We're small compared to the great empires. We don't have fleets or centuries of knowledge. What makes us worthy?" Dr. Cora placed a hand on his shoulder. "Perhaps worthiness does not come from power, but from spirit. The Arakai may have known that the galaxy would one day need a spark. Something simple, yet strong enough to ignite unity." Her words lingered in Elias's mind long after she left. Council of Divided Worlds. A week later, leaders from many races arrived at the colony. They gathered in a vast chamber carved into the rock, banners of different factions fluttering above them. The news of the armor's awakening had spread too far to hide. Now empires, guilds, and free worlds all demanded answers. The council was filled with argument. Some wanted the armor destroyed, fearing it would draw endless war. Others wanted it controlled, placed in the hands of a strong empire. A few even demanded it be surrendered to the Dominion to avoid further conflict. Elias sat quietly at the edge, the armor beside him like a silent guardian. He listened as alien voices clashed until finally he could not stay silent. "You're all afraid," he said, his voice carrying across the chamber, "afraid of what this armor means. But the real danger isn't the armor, it's what's coming. The visions show me a war bigger than anything we've seen. The Dominion is only the beginning." The room fell silent. Dr. Cora stepped forward to support him. "He speaks the truth. I have studied the legends all my life. The Arakai did not build the armor for conquest. They built it for survival. For all of us." Still, many leaders hesitated. Old rivalries ran deep, and trust was rare in the galaxy. Elias looked around the room, meeting their eyes. "You don't have to trust me, but you all saw the Dominion flee. You saw them fear the armor. That fear will bring them back, and when they come, they won't stop at humans or Vayari or Yurok. They'll come for everyone. If we don't stand together, we'll fall one by one." His words struck a chord. For the first time, some of the leaders began to see beyond their divisions. The shadow revealed. That night, as Elias slept, the armor pulled him into one final vision. He saw the galaxy's edge. A storm of darkness spread across the stars. swallowing systems whole. The shapes within it were twisted, faceless things like living shadows that drained light and life alike. The ancient voice of the Arakai echoed. They wake once more. We fought them and we fell. But we built the armor for you, the ones who would come later. Your strength is not in your body but in your will. Where others see walls, you see paths. Where others follow order, you create. Elias gasped awake, heart pounding. The vision left him shaken but clear-minded. The true enemy was stirring and time was short. The second invasion. His clarity came just in time. Scouts reported the Dominion had returned, this time with a fleet large enough to darken the skies. The horizon burned with their engines as wave after wave of ships descended. Panic swept through the colony. The defenses would never hold. The council shouted in fear, their brief unity shattering under the weight of the threat. Elias stepped forward, armored once more, his voice steady. Listen to me. If we fight divided, we will lose. But if we fight as one, we have a chance. Not because of me, not because of the armor, but because we're stronger together. The words spread like fire. For the first time, Human, Vayari, Urok, and others stood side by side, their weapons aimed at the same sky. The final battle. The Dominion rained fire down upon the desert, their warships thundering. Troops poured from dropships, marching in endless ranks. Elias launched into the air, his wings blazing. He cut through enemy lines not as a lone warrior, but as a signal. Wherever he flew, defenders surged with courage. They fought harder, stood taller, believing in their unity. Dr. Cora led ground forces, directing fire with calm precision. The Urok scholar, once doubtful, now fought with fierce loyalty. Even alien rivals who once distrusted each other covered one another's flanks. Elias targeted the Dominion's command ship again, but this time he did not go alone. Dozens of allied fighters joined him, weaving through fire, protecting each other. Together they broke through the shields and tore the great ship from the sky. The Dominion line faltered. Their soldiers hesitated, unnerved by the sight of a united resistance. Then slowly their retreat began. The defenders cheered, their voices rising like thunder over the desert. The HFY moment. When the dust settled, Elias stood at the heart of the battlefield, armor glowing like a star. The council and survivors gathered around him. Dr. Cora spoke first. The Dominion will come again, and beyond them waits something worse. But today we have seen what we thought impossible. Unity. The Urok scholar bowed his insect-like head. I doubted, I mocked. Yet the human has shown us the path. Not strength, not size, but spirit. That is what makes humanity worthy. The leaders of other races murmured agreement. Some even placed their banners together, forming a single circle. Elias removed his helmet, sweat running down his face. He looked at them all, his voice tired but steady. I'm not a hero. I'm just human. But maybe that's enough. Because being human means not giving up. It means finding a way when no way exists. And if we all carry that spirit, then nothing in the galaxy can stop us. The crowd erupted in cheers. For the first time, the galaxy's races looked at humanity not as weak newcomers, but as something greater. The spark of hope they all needed. Epilogue. Weeks later, word spread across the stars. The story of the human who awakened the ancient armor traveled faster than any ship. Some called him the Chosen. Others called him the heir of the Arakai. But Elias did not care for titles. He knew the true battle was still ahead. The shadows from his visions were real, and one day they would arrive. Until then, he would train, he would lead, and he would remind every world of one truth. Humanity was small. Yes, but it was the small spark that could light the fire of the galaxy, and that spark had only just begun to burn.